Meanwhile, in Crimea, there are reports now that local residents are forming self-defence units to voluntarily maintain order and security in the capital. And with the airport all but closed to in- and outbound flights, travel to the Ukrainian capital Kiev is only possible by car or rail. So let's get a sense of what's happening on the ground from ABC correspondent Norman Humont, who has managed to find his way to Kiev. Norman, how hard was it for you to get to Kiev?
Oh, Kiev is completely normal. There's flights operating between the Russian capital Moscow and here quite regularly. It's much more difficult to get to Simferopol. There are still flights going in there from Moscow. However, travel from here in Kiev and other parts of the world to Simferopol, which is the capital of Crimea, has been cut off. There are lots of stories of media crews, foreign media crews being harassed. Some of them are being turned around. Some have had their equipment taken. We made the decision to come and report the story from here rather than taking that chance in Crimea.
Now, Norman, we know that John Kerry and David Cameron have held talks, and now Sergei Lavrov has also joined John Kerry. These are really last-ditch efforts to try and get some resolve before Sunday and this referendum.
Last-minute talks, and I have to say, Beverly, there's almost no one here who takes seriously the chance that this referendum won't take place. It seems to be a fait accompli here that it is going to take place, and there will be a very strong endorsement there in Crimea to break away from Ukraine and join Russia. The real test that people here in Kiev are looking for is what happens after the referendum takes place. What happens, say, on Monday? We've heard a number of European leaders promising that there are going to be very tough sanctions. There are going to be measures that will make Moscow really pause to consider whether it wants to go ahead and annex Crimea. Here in the Ukrainian capital, that's really all they have to depend on because, as by their own admission, they are so militarily outgunned. The military imbalance is enormous. There's nothing they can do on their own to stop the Russians from acting as they wish. So they have to look to the world community to see what's going to happen in the days after the referendum to see if this march towards annexation with Russia on the part of Crimea can be prevented.
And you talk about that imbalance. This is a real David and Goliath battle, isn't it? Give us a sense of just how outnumbered they are.
Well, here in Kiev, we're hearing from a lot of Ukrainians who are really quite shocked and disappointed from some of the information they received this week from their own acting defense minister. He told the Ukrainian parliament, the Rada, that the Ukrainian armed forces, whilst they may number in total something like 200,000, right now, if they had to put troops in the field to take on a foreign enemy, i.e. Russia, you're looking at about 6,000 battle-ready troops. Now, to give you some perspective, Ukraine says in the border areas close to Ukraine, around its eastern borders, Russia has deployed something in excess of 200,000 troops. And in fact, Moscow just announced yesterday that major military exercises are underway just over the eastern border of Ukraine's eastern border with Russia, involving about 8,500 troops, and they're particularly offensive in nature. They involve mobile artillery, helicopter units, paratroopers. Some of this is taking place less than 50 kilometers away from a major Ukrainian city, Kharkiv, in the east of the country that has a large ethnic Russian population. So there's a lot of anxious eyes, not only looking to Crimea, but also to eastern Ukraine to see what Russia's next moves might be in that region.
Norman, give us a sense of Kiev itself. Of course, the leaders in Ukraine are talking tough, but there was horrible violence in Donetsk. Doesn't feel as if everything is well ordered and as if they are really holding their ground.
Yeah, as you refer to those scenes in Donetsk, Beverly, a real illustration of how divided parts of this country are. Obviously, that is from this region I was talking about, eastern Ukraine. That's where Donetsk is. And we're seeing those pictures overnight of two rallies in that city, one in support of Russian President Vladimir Putin and others in support of the new Ukrainian government, and a rally that was supporting one Ukraine against this idea that Crimea might vote to break away from Ukraine. Obviously, police had a lot of trouble overnight keeping those two groups apart. In some cases, they failed. There was at least one death. And there's a real concern here that that sort of violence could easily spread if it's not taken under control. And if it does, that might give Russia a pretext to take some sort of military action in the same sort of way they've done in Crimea. So really, the question here is not so much the referendum that takes place on Sunday, but what happens in the days after it. That's what's really causing the unease here in Kiev.
Norman, good to talk to you. Thank you so much for that update.